still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Ask Hastie. How are you, Steve?
I'm very well, thanks, Steve. Yourself?
Very good, mate. Good to see you. And we got an early question in from someone. If you want a question for Steve, get on to us in the chat if you were on YouTube. If not, and you want to go old school, then go by email, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. I'm afraid if you send it by postcard, it's not going to get here in time for this show, but it will do for the one we'll probably do in a month's time.
Also cost you £1.80.
Anthony Beatty messaged me on X. He says, Steve, just a couple of points for your Ask Hastie show later. I think we can simplify this transfer window situation. 1, in this day and age, you need people above Howe who know the game, know business, have contacts who can make deals happen. We haven't got that at the minute with Nixon and Andy Howe. We aren't shopping at Asda anymore. We're shopping at Harrods. We need people in who are at the top of their profession, as we are talking about tens of millions per deal. 2, with the constraints of PSR and our wage structure, we can't, at the moment, pay players £250,000 to £300,000 a week, which we just can't. And this is why so many players have knocked us back. They see it in simple terms. He's getting £250,000. I'm as good as him, so I want that. Players likely died years ago. It's the cash that rules now. I really do think it's that simple. What do you think, Mr. Hastie?
I think you're probably right. I really do. It's pretty obvious that the way that the salaries have inflated over the last sort of 3 or 4 seasons, to the point where you've got Manchester United, who are the one club that people are looking at and thinking probably can't compete in PSR terms and having to sell players, but they were selling players that were on £375,000 a week. You know, they've had players out on loan where they've been paying half their wages in the likes of Anthony and players like that. And you're thinking the salaries that these guys are astronomical. And then you look at Ekatike, went to Liverpool and on a reported £375,000 a week. I mean, dear me. That means that if what we hear from Liverpool is true, between Salah and Van Dijk and Ekatike, they are spending £1 million a week on salaries on 3 players. And when you start looking at that's 3 players, there's £52 million in a year. And you've got another, 22 to make up the squad of 25. And what happens with them? Do they start looking over their shoulder and start going, well, hang on, if he's come in on 375 and he's never played in the Premier League before, what about me? You know, I've just won the league. Third time in 5 or second time in 5 seasons or whatever. You know, and it's just getting beyond the pale, Steve. When the one place that the finger never gets pointed at is the PFA. They're the ones who come crying when there's issues. And I know we hear this constantly that it's a short career. But I tell you what, I'd have a career of 1 year. I'd be happy with a 1 year career if I was on 400 or £375,000 a week. And I think 99.9% of us would be exactly the same. In fact, I'd like to meet the 0.1% who wouldn't, because if I did and they said that they weren't happy, I wouldn't believe them, because it's just ridiculous money, isn't it, Steve? It's way, way beyond anything that we can imagine. But the whole transfer thing, I took some notes, Steve. I've just all week we've been on about where this club's heading, what's going on, and I've just jotted a few things down, and I'll not read the whole thing. We can work through it, but just to spark a bit of conversation, I thought let's look at Eddie's first words around the final weekend of the season when it was reported that he was in talks with Yasser Al-Rumayyan. His exact words were, "Speed is key for us," and I've reiterated that many times internally. Speed is key because we have to be dynamic. We have to be ready to conclude things very quickly, because good players don't hang around for long. That's always been my thought and my message on recruitment, because you can have a period where you think you have time, but then you look around quickly and you see that time has elapsed and you've missed your opportunity. An opportunity that you won't get again. That's what we will be trying, but the reality is that it's not always in your hands, but we will do our best to do things early. The power of the Champions League is huge. It's a selling point for us now, an opportunity to sell that dream to future players that might be considering coming to us. Now, I don't know about you, but just that first paragraph, I'm sitting there, and when I jotted it down, you know, I cut and pasted it from Eddie's words.
Yeah.
And I thought, dear me, that was only 7 weeks ago. And where are we now? And it's pretty scary, isn't it? The very fact that, yes, we've picked up Elanga, but everything else that's gone on. I mean, why did I asked myself the question, why did Eddie say that? And I said to myself, possibly because he felt that we were now in a good position PSR wise and getting everything sorted early. And it was vital for him, with the games coming thick and fast in the Premier League and in the Champions League. He wanted his squad there, and it's only common sense and sensible. But perhaps he was also laying down a market to the directors after 3 relatively barren transfer windows. However, it looks like that was completely derailed, and I'd be interested in hearing what people think. Completely derailed by the sudden departure of Paul Mitchell, because that was announced less than 48 hours after the final game, and it was also what, despite what he said, it was our most successful season for 70 years. And
did he see the storm coming? Bry asks.
Sorry,
did he see the storm coming?
I'm wondering whether
is that why he bailed? Because I mean, it was a mutual departure. That was the line that was announced. Yeah. But you know, some rumours that circulate suggested it was far from that. But you know, they are the rumours. You know, I guess it's.
I mean, the story didn't wash. The tale that came out didn't wash in my eyes. You know, the fact that Darren Neal was ill and was serving his notice, serving his time. And he felt it was the right time to go. But if I look back and we look at Paul, let's take Paul Mitchell first. We look at Paul Mitchell's record. He was at Southampton. He lasted 2 seasons. He went to Tottenham. He left when Pochettino left, or not long after that. Pochettino poached him. He went to Tottenham. He lasted two seasons. He was then put on notice that he was leaving, by the chairman, because they fell out. They didn't get on, and there was a breakup. He went to Leipzig. He lasted 2 seasons. He went to Monaco. He lasted 2.5, maybe 3 seasons. So there's a pattern there that he doesn't stay long. But he goes in with 5-year plans. He came to us with a 5-year plan. There was never a mention in any of our friends in the press. It was never discussed that he had only ever done 2, a maximum of 3 years at any job. Even in his playing career, he didn't tend to stay very long anywhere. Whether it's just his mentality, or whether it's just a thing with him that he doesn't settle, or he's always looking for pastures new, I'm not too sure. But that's the nature of the guy. So maybe we shouldn't have been surprised when he went after a year. But the manner in which he left, the sudden announcement after our most successful season in 70 years, where he was at the helm of it. But did he know, perhaps, that we were going to struggle in the transfer window? He had certainly criticised our transfer activity in the past, our philosophy, or whatever you want to call it. He criticised that. He then reeled back on it a little bit, didn't he? And I think he probably had to, and he was probably told in no uncertain terms that you were criticising not a past regime, but you were criticising people who were still in situ. So I don't think it went down well. But there was no stability there. We lost the stability, I suppose, of Dan Ashworth. He was actually poached. Has Paul Mitchell got a new job yet? Has he taken up a new post? No. Are we hearing anything in any newspapers that there's a new post pending somewhere? All very, very, very strange. And we could say, yes, he targeted, or he spotted that there was going to be weaknesses, and he decided to leave. But I don't think you do that. I honestly don't think you do that, Steve. I think there would have been whispers long before that, because you'd have set the scene, you'd have played it out, and then when things weren't going your way, you would have let know. You wouldn't have just suddenly decide within 48 hours at the end of the season, oh, by the way, I've decided I'm going. And it must have been a scramble, because he had to work apparently 30 days notice. Now, we forced Dan Ashworth, when clubs were looking for him, we forced him on gardening leave for God knows how many months, Soon as it was announced that he wasn't interested, he was on gardening leave, and we started looking for a replacement, which took a while. But the whole Mitchell situation, it was just like, oh yeah, okay, ta-ra, thanks very much. And there had to be more to it. There has to be more to it, Steve. It's not a footballing decision that for the sporting director to last less than 12 months and come up with the excuse he did.
Okay, plenty of questions coming into the show tonight. Stephen Kennedy has posted one. He's not watching live. He'll catch up later on. Says, Mr. Hastie, should we be asking Liverpool for 130 million plus Harvey Elliott? And should PIF behind the scenes stop Saudi league teams buying from our rivals, which is helping them out?
Interesting. Good question. I don't think we should be asking Liverpool for anything. I think Liverpool should be coming to us with an offer. I think that's the first thing. Yeah. At which point we should be saying offer's not good enough. And for me, I think we if Liverpool come and said 150 million, I would have said no, go away. 130 million, definitely not. I think we've already said he's not for sale, and it's been pushed. I mean, it's coming out now. Little things are coming out. It would appear that what's happened is that somebody approached. Well, Liverpool. Let's get this right. Liverpool have approached his representatives and said, would he be interested? If he became available, do you think you would be interested? Now that's naughty. It's probably in that grey area of, are you making an approach? Are you not making a legal approach? It's putting the thing out there. Newcastle were aware that Liverpool had an interest, so I've been told. And I've heard that it was leaked by somebody on Isak's side. Not saying it was the player, but I'm heard that somebody within Isak's camp leaked it. And that's caused a bit of a rumpus. And that's why Liverpool are now playing very, very careful and very coy. And they're saying if we get in any, because they'd already been told by Newcastle he wasn't for sale, but they're saying if there's any inkling now that Newcastle might be interested in selling, would like to know about it. Now they've already done the work behind the scenes. We know that, and I think that's what leaves a taste. For me, the bid starts, if there was going to be a bid more, it starts at 200 million. And if they want to tag players in to try and bring it down to somewhere near 150 million, then fine. But for me, we shouldn't be looking. He's got 3 years left on his contract. Yes, we've got an unhappy player, quite possibly, but we've also got a player who signed a 3-year contract. And the bit that does stick is, first of all, Eddie said that he wasn't of the right frame of mind. Well, yeah, I could understand that because he'd been tapped to a greater or lesser degree. But then this fact that he obviously said he definitely wasn't going to go on the tour, that kind of sticks in my throat a little bit, especially when we then get told he's got an injury and then the wheel out players to say, oh, yes, he's injured. From what I understand, the players have known that Isak has been very, very unhappy for almost a year now, Steve. And if that's the case, then players suddenly say, "Oh, he's injured" and blah blah. When it's been a common thread, and the press have known about it, and they've kept quiet on it. And I suppose the reason the press will have kept quiet on that is who was going to be the journalist who stuck his head above the parapet a year ago to say that Alexander Isak is not happy at Newcastle since Amanda Staveley's left because he's been promised this and he's been promised that. Nobody was ever going to write that. Nobody was going to rock the boat. We were still in our honeymoon period. We ended up having the most successful football season of our lives as supporters and as a football club. And that's all happened behind the scenes, and we've done remarkably well. We had no gripes, no complaints until this approach that's been made through, and now we're left in a really bad place, aren't we? We're left with a player who apparently now's gone to his old club Sociedad to train, to get fit. Who sanctioned that? Especially when we find out today, Steve, that there's a clause in the contract that says if he goes to somewhere else, then Sociedad will get 10% of the deal. And you're thinking, so they're getting him fit so that we can sell him, so they can benefit by 10%. Who turned around and said, yeah, get yourself away to Sociedad and get yourself fit? It's like, what on earth? That for me is sham amateurism. And you've got to start looking at who's running what behind the scenes.
That sounds to me like he's literally just gone there because the club have told him. The club's told him that you're not going to Asia. They've said it's because of an injury, and then of course what's happened is he's decided off his own back to go and train. And the way that it's been explained today is that he's his team of advisors and he has people who like to get him fit or help him get fit, etc. It sounds like a load of flannel, but that was the first thing I thought. What on earth is going on now? How is it of all the clubs to be at as well? The club that benefits if he gets sold.
Yeah, it just beggars belief. It's sham amateurism from us if we're allowing it to happen, and it's absolutely stick in the throat time if he's just doing it off his own bat, in the hope that spend a little bit of time with Sociedad to get fit so that they can benefit. It's kind of like you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours time, and football doesn't work like that. I'm sorry, mate. You're under contract with Newcastle United. You do what Newcastle United tell you. You know, yeah. If he was injured and he was at home, then there should have been physios left behind to look after him. There's people working with the women's team. There's people working with the under-21s, the under-18s, the academy. There's plenty physios around, and he should have been getting treatment. And there should have been a program that had been left by Bunce to say, right, if that's the injury, this is what we want. And if he's not injured, then the call should have came, and it shouldn't have been Eddie turning around at a press conference the other day saying, no, he's not going to come over. It should have been Eddie on the phone saying, get him over, just as a point of order. You know, we've seen it happen before, not necessarily with our clubs, but other clubs. The manager has to stand up, and the manager has to be respected, and he has to be respected not just by Isak while he's one of our players, but he has to be respected in the dressing room by the rest of the squad. And he has to be seen that he's strong enough to stand up and go, you know what? If that lad is now saying he's fit, get him over here on a plane. I might not pay him. He might not play, but it's for my benefit as the manager of this football club to stamp my authority on not just him, but the other 30 players that I've got there on the tour, or however many it is. And to stamp his authority and to let the people above, who are obviously ignoring him at the moment, or who are not around, or who are not capable, or insufficient in their knowledge about football and how football clubs work, he has to show them that he's in charge. Because the same people, if results don't start going our way at the start of the season, they're the people that are holding Eddie Howe's job in their hands, and Eddie Howe's future potentially, and they could hold that back against him. It could be held against Eddie in 3 months' time that he wasn't strong enough when the Isak situation broke, because there's always been whispers, hasn't there, that Eddie is too loyal, and maybe this was a time when loyalty goes out the window and a little bit of ballsiness comes into it, and he stamps his authority, but he hasn't. And it's allowed this situation to fester, and now to find us in a situation where Real Sociedad are getting him fit to help to sell him.
A lot of people talking about Isak. It's one of those situations where, you know, the chat is obviously full of it, because that is the big thing. We have got other questions, but I will just read out a couple of things. Good point, said Gary with Mr. Hastie, with regards to a price for Isak, 200 million. Liverpool got 146 million a few years back. The big dog in the game is PIF, so why let Yorkshire Terrier bother you, says David Smart. And Dave says, why did Isak leave it so late to bring this to a head? He screwed himself, as most potential suitors have now bought expensive strikers. As a bonus, it's buggered our pre-season preparations royally. The Isak timing is unexplainable, says Colin. Pablo says, the very problem is the players that are that rich, Steve. They pull the strings. Unlike yesteryear, they'd be fearing fines and no wages. It is player power. We're seeing it with Wissa at Brentford as well, on a slightly smaller scale, but again, it's something that's involving us, you know. So we will come back to, and Ian, you are right. Didn't Joe Linton go back to his old club in Brazil in April to get fit too? It does happen. Yeah, it does happen.
You can go back. You can have it sanctioned. Yes, get yourself back there. I mean, we've seen a number of players go back to world clubs. We've saw Tonali go back. It does happen regularly, but not when a player said that he's not fit enough to travel to the Far East, and the club's all away, and he's left to play on his own and do things, and he decides if it's off his own bat, then questions have got to be asked. And even worse, if it wasn't off his own bat and he was allowed to go back, has nobody realised that there was this 10% sell-on clause, and just the sheer look that it's putting up? The fact that it looks like, because we keep saying he's not for sale, but the club that's going to benefit from 10% when he's fit and ready to be sold is helping, you know. Send him anywhere, you know. Send him back up to Malmo, wherever he was. Why Sociedad? You know, it's just not right. It's a wrong move. People thought that Isak had played a blinder at the very beginning, because it was taking advantage of, or there was a lot of people like me were of sympathy with him for the fact that he'd been let down. The conversations that he said he'd had with Amanda, the conversations that he'd had previous, the way that he claimed the claims in the press that he was treated by Mitchell, who refused and said, "You've got 3 years on your contract. You carry on paying." Some other people might have said, "Well done, Mitchell. Stood up to it. Not going to be taken for a ride." But any sympathy that was sitting with Alexander Isak because he felt he'd been let down, I think has quickly evaporated. And I tell you who didn't help that today, Michael Owen.
No, that was me.
When he came out and said what he said, and you're just thinking bitter and twisted. You know, that's that. Every time he speaks, that's the only words I ever use. I just look at it, I just mouth bitter and twisted, and then I switch off.
Some of these people forget that we don't forget. I think that's the big thing. Mark Byers, good evening or good afternoon to you. He says, "Hi Steve, great to see you last weekend. With Isak choosing to train in Spain rather than Newcastle, it appears he's on strike, although nobody is using that term. Would you say he's on strike, Steve?"
Well, we haven't got any games from not to turn up to. We've got some by next weekend. We've got pre-season friendlies. We've got 2 of them, one on Friday, one on Saturday. That's the statement. If this deal hasn't been sorted, if this whole situation hasn't been rendered and scrubbed, then it's what Eddie does on the pre-season friendlies. Whether or not the player suddenly develops another injury, or whether he's wrapped in cotton wool to protect them from this so-called injury. I don't think we can see he's on strike because I think he's basically throwing his bottles out the pram, and I think he's willing a move. If he's willing £300,000 a week, let's just remind him you're still going to be on £75,000 a week, less than Hugo Ekitike is. So you're not exactly playing the blinder that you think you are, nor is your agent. And it is player power. We know that, but I think the longer this has gone on, the more Isak has misread the room, because Isak is the sort of guy who might turn around and go, "You know what? We're going to hold you at 3 years." And I tell you what, he's going to have to come back with an awful lot of humble pie, and he's going to have to start banging the goals in right from the start to be able to redeem himself. Our big problem is we're not bringing anyone in that even looks like a partner, never mind a ready replacement. And my concern's more geared to that at the moment, Steve, because it doesn't look as though there's any succession planning for a director of football, any succession planning for a CEO. I can understand why we haven't appointed anyone, because even if we've identified someone, would you, Steve, if you were going to be the CEO or if you were going to be the sporting director, would you come in this weekend with 2 weeks to go till the start of the season, or a week to go, and with 3 weeks of the window left? And the first headache they have to face is, should I be the man that sells Alexander Isak? The answer is no. You wouldn't do it.
Made last week. The point I made last week, and I think that's seriously why we haven't seen those appointments. What a strange summer! A summer where we all thought we were going to spend £200 million and increase our chances of winning more silverware next season. And this is the mess we find ourselves in with a couple of weeks to go until the start of the season. It's typical Newcastle United in a lot of ways. And we need to stay calm and carry on, I guess, and pray for progress, not trust the process. Quick ad break back after this. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach. All excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk. Okay, welcome back to Ask Hastie. We've also got 1 month to go for you to subscribe to the fanzine. 56 subscribers we have at the minute, 4 issues for £25. That includes your postage throughout next season, and all proceeds go to Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. So simply go to the website nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk to order yours today. And let's get back to the questions. And Les just says, same question I asked George last night. Not asking for info, but given the behind the scenes knowledge you likely have, are you optimistic for the window and season? Just yes or no?
For the season, I will always be optimistic until it gets to Christmas and Eddie's in one of those slip-slidey moments of not being able to win a game, and then I start to panic. For the window, you know what? I'm not optimistic at all about this window. The fact that, let's face it, from what I've gathered, Sesko was not even on our wish list, and all of a sudden he became our number one. Ekitike was supposed to be our number one, and that just pushed him to Liverpool. Sesko's now our number one, and it's been pushed to Man United. There's no question that the red tops are really destabilising our football club with all this talk. Not getting a top target, my concern in not doing so is what it'll do for the squad, how it'll destabilise the squad. If we go into this with Asula as our main striker, which is quite possible, we're going to have to pull a finger out. And every player that we're now being linked with, as we'll move down the list to number 5, to number 6, to number 7, you've got to question yourself and say, are they of the caliber that is better than what we had in a Callum Wilson? Are they going to get the number of goals that Alexander Isak was scoring? If we're bringing players in that are potentially 10 goals a season scorers, where are the rest of the goals going to come from? I haven't seen anything in pre-season so far that shows that we've got anyone who can put a shot in, take a chance. Sula had 4 or 5 efforts the other night, fluffed them all. Shots wide of the post, headers that couldn't connect. This type of thing. And I know the lad's just a young lad, and it's probably not right to criticise him in that respect, but we could find ourselves going into this season with Asula as our main striker. Why do I say that? Because I can't see anyone. Okay, we've got Nixon and we've got Howe's nephew, but who else have we got? Who in the football club behind the scenes is doing anything, you know, anything from a football perspective. Brad Miller's not, because that's not, Brad Miller's the operating officer. He operates the football club. So he operates like everybody who works with nothing to do with the playing staff, if you like. You know, he's in overall control of the ground and the ticketing and redevelopment and works that go on and everything to do with events that happen. And, you know, he oversees all of that aspect of the football club. I can't see anyone who has any sort of history of sitting down with agents who are so good at the game, who will run rings around you if you show any form of weakness, because these guys are sharks. These guys are at the top of their game. They're at the top of the financial game. They know exactly what their client is worth. They're fighting for their client, and they will squeeze every pip out of you. And I can't see anyone with any background and any negotiating skills whatsoever to fight that. And I don't think there's anyone from PIF that's there that does that. They might have business acumen, but that business acumen is in doing deals to get a sponsor on board, which is squeezing the nuts the other way for yourself to get more money off them. They are actually in the seat of the agent, if you like, because that's the agent's job. And I can't see anyone else. I don't think Andy Howe is going to walk into a room and some of these top agents are going to go, "Oh shit, it's Andy Howe," or "Oh shit, it's Steve Nixon. I'm going to have to be on me. I'm going to be happy on my game here." I think go like that because I don't think I've been in that situation.
Joe Cal has emailed us. If you want to email us, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. He says, feels like the project's died, Steve. How come with no Champions League we attracted quality players? Now with Champions League we can't attract players. No new ground, no new training facility, no new sponsorships. This wasn't in the brochure when PIF bought us, which is, I guess, how a lot of people are feeling. Yeah. Denise says, would you sign Lucas Paqueta?
At a stroke, I would. Yes. If for no other reason, it would keep Joe Linton and Bruno happy, and probably Tonali as well, because those three seem to get on well, and Paqueta would be another one, another character. He is a class act, I think. I think he's one of those players that brings a totally different dimension. He reminds me a bit of the lad that we were interested in from Inter. Was it Barella, I think? Was that his name? I can't remember now. Reminds me a bit of the way that he plays. He's full on. He's in your face. He's got a lovely touch. He can go on and on during the game. He's not the sort of player who drifts away after 60 minutes. He can stick his foot in. We've seen that with him and Bruno over the last 2 seasons when they've tried to kick lumps out of each other in a friendly way, of course.
Of course.
You know, let's not say that they were going for each other's throats, but they were certainly going for each other's ankles. He's a worky ticket. He might be just what the dressing room needs if you lose an Alexander Isak, because he's the sort who. Because I don't think I've seen him play a bad game for Brazil whenever I've watched. I've seen Bruno play some bad games for Brazil in the early days, but Paqueta for me was the kind of star man that, you know, that was shining in what was at the time a pretty poor Brazilian outfit, mainly because they just didn't have a decent manager. So I would definitely consider him. Definitely be one for me, because the other reason is it's 30 million quid apparently that they're looking for. They're looking for, which in today's game, I mean, if we're now being quoted 50 million for Wissa, I think 30 million for a Paqueta. When, what was it, 3 years ago when we were looking at him, we were all being touted at 60, 65. Yeah. So I think that alone, and I think that's probably where we are shopping at now. I don't think we are really shopping in the Cisco modes, because if we stick our head above the parapet for a 65, 70 million pound player, another club will come in for him. because they'll go, oh yeah, and we've seen it with Ekitike. We missed out on a £30 million player who went to Chelsea. We've seen other players, and then when we do get approached and we get offered players, it's clubs saying, "Oh, by the way, I want 100 million for him," like Nicholas Jackson, for example, at Chelsea. In Kunko, 70 million, 65 million, and you're going no. And I think maybe we need to lower, or we're being forced to lower it. And the other reason, of course, Steve, is you buy a £70 million footballer, he's going to want the £300,000 that we're not prepared to pay.
Yeah. Rob Malton says, question for both of you. Are you looking forward to the new Naked Gun film? I feel we all need a good laugh to cheer us up after this transfer window.
I'll watch anything that'll make us laugh, I tell you. Anything.
It'll be good, Rob. It'll be good.
That series was fantastic. I mean, what call him Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, he was just, that series was just made for him, wasn't it? He did it so well. Like this one, I mean, will it be as funny? Will it lose any edge? I suppose only once we've seen it can we actually stay it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Andy says, what's the chances of getting Amanda?
Wow. Now, this is an interesting one because I heard a whisper today that there are whispers inside anyone of her coming back. Now, this is not necessarily being driven by the club, but it was being driven. I did hear it third hand, but that third hand was just a stone's throw away from the person who said it. So I suppose I could say it was second hand. And I think you might hear in the press in the next couple of days, you might hear more than a whisper from certain press people saying it's going to need the likes of an Amanda to come back and to steady the ship. And I think that is getting into the ear of some people at Newcastle. I'm not saying she will come back. I'm just hearing that these type of words are being said. And when a press guy who is very, very well connected with the football club, far more connected than I think people realise, is saying that, that tells me that he's hearing something from within, and it is true that it's not him trying to, because he doesn't do yards, he doesn't do column inches, he's not a writer, so it's not in his worth to put a column out to say it, and he won't put a column out, because that's not the game he's in, that's not the part of the press he's in. But when he said it, or when he's hearing it, and when he's saying that there are whispers, I think it's a case of watch this space. Don't be surprised.
Okay, Dom Dewsbury says, genuine question. Would Watkins give Newcastle more of a chance of getting Champions League again next season over keeping an unhappy Isak whose performances might dip from being unhappy?
Are you saying that we would have Watkins instead of Isak, or with Isak there? If it's instead of Isak, then I think we've got to go for somebody possibly of his caliber and his experience in the Premier League. I'll get laughed at now because I'll say that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is the sort of lad who could lead the line. I don't think Watkins is a lead the line, but I think as a two and as an option, one or the other. And I'm probably going to say, so when Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injured, you can play Watkins and vice versa. But you know what, where I'm coming from. If you got one and he was going to cost you 50 million, and you get the other one for free, for me that's two £25 million footballers. That's the way I would look at it. I would say that would be a good deal for Newcastle in the current situation, because I don't think we're going to get, like I say, the 70-80 thing. I think Watkins, I very much doubt Watkins is on a massive wage at Villa. Now he might come in and ask for a massive wage, but given the the price that's on his head, I think you're probably looking at a player coming in and getting exactly the same as what Alexander Isak's getting, which is reportedly £150,000 a week. I don't think he's on £150,000 a week when he went to Villa from, was it Brentford? I don't think he would have been on that, and I don't think that Villa would have been suddenly lashing out. They lashed out on other players that they gave ridiculous wages to, and they took the likes of Coutinho, didn't they, on loan and stuff like that. But I think that Watkins he's an intelligent footballer, and we saw in the Euros that there's a heart about him, and he can put the ball back in the net. He's got that experience, and maybe we just lower it to the likes of a Watkins. Maybe that's where we should be looking, and that's no disrespect to Watkins, by the way.
No, definitely not. Blue Rhythm Boys and Steve, what's your thoughts on these pre-season tours? I know they're necessary evil for revenue, but trailing around in the heat and flying here and there and everything, mind the mess back home, can't be helped.
Timing, isn't it? The mess back home is a horrible distraction from what should have been a very, very fruitful tour. I'm sure the club will turn around and say it's been fruitful. Disappointed to hear that Silverstone is wandering around shopping malls with boxes of kits, selling them at £30 cheaper than they are here. I'm looking forward to seeing him Eldon Square doing exactly the same the next couple of weeks, or at the Metrocentre. I don't think he will, by the way. But I was quite surprised to find out the kit was £30 cheaper in Singapore, an expensive country, than it is here. But I suppose that what they're trying to do is they're trying to grow in the Far East. You notice in the crowds, I mean, it was like, I think it was sort of 2/3, 1/3 towards Arsenal in terms of support. And that shows you what Arsenal have got in the Far East in the form of a fan base. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with our fan base in Singapore, but it just shows you that if you put the yards in, then you reap what you sow. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We seem to have moved away. I don't know why. We seem to have moved away from North America for now. We don't seem to be concentrating on that. We seem to have decided that the Far East is the bigger growth area, perhaps. Maybe it's the metrics that these marketing people look at. Maybe that's where they see better value. Maybe it's because in the US, the women's football is stronger than the men's football for a start. Maybe the girls should have gone on a tour of the US. They might have made an absolute fortune, and they might have generated some interest, and then we could have flogged them, and then we wouldn't have had a PSR problem. But I suppose it's the nature of Keegan took with to Japan, didn't he? All those years ago, and we won the Japan Cup.
82.
He took with to meet the Sultan of Brunei, if I remember rightly. Peter still got the gift, I believe. When you talk to him, I'm sure he'll tell you about it. But I think they had a fabulous time. And if you look back, I think the reward for Kevin Keegan taking, I think he took 2 players to meet the Sultan. Peter Beardsley was one of them. I can't remember who the other one was. I know it wasn't Robert Lee because he was going to be, and then he got taken off the trip for some reason. And I think that came out in a story that Rob told at one of your talkings, Steve. So anyone, go to a talking that Steve puts on, because these are the sort of things you find out of the likes of Rob Lee. But didn't we win a bus? Didn't he present us with a beautiful luxury coach at the time? No PSR problems then, was there? There was no associated party transaction faults going on or anything like that. You could do things like that in those dark days. But no, I think it's just the nature of the way that you have to promote yourself all around the world. You identify a market, you go for it one season. It's interesting. I know the Premier League are also dropping America as one of the, I think, I don't know what they called it. There was that competition that we played in a couple of seasons ago in Atlanta. And and now the Premier League saying that it ran on a loss, and they're not prepared to run on a loss again. And I think they're leaving it to teams to set their own agenda when they go to the US now. Maybe it's the US market's just getting a little bit too clogged with FIFA nipping in, and then obviously we've got the World Cup next season. We had that stupid championships this season. I did watch some of those games, by the way. I know you didn't watch any, Steve, but when it got to the tail end, when it got to the important part, I did watch some of the quarterfinals and semi-finals, and it was interesting. I watched it because I wanted to see some of the South American clubs and see what the players were like, and see whether there was still a bunch of Rajis who would kick people off the pitch, like they did back in the day. You know, whenever you played an Estudiantes or something like that, they just went for the jugular. You know, and I wanted to see whether it was still the same. I always visualized Tino playing in those type of games and taking an absolute kicking and punching people back and almost stabbing them. You know.
I've had a comment in the chat from Mark Byers. I won't be reading this. That's where you got us there, Mark. You got us there. James Slater says, Steve, question for you. If you had to identify 3 areas of the club that need improving most, what are they and why?
I would certainly be looking at what's going on in the commercial department, simply because we are relying on that commercial department to get us out of a PSR hole. We shouldn't be relying on selling players. I thought we were better than that. We should have all of those commercial deals in place that we've talked about long and hard, that Stewie on the professionals has repeated as his mantra. So certainly the commercial department I'll be looking at. I'd be looking at supporter services, because I think they don't do a very good job. I think they let us down immensely, because I don't think that the service that they give is really what's that one? No, I don't remember that, Gary. Gary's on drugs, I think. He's completely thrown us there. So supporter services I'd look at, and within supporter services, obviously, you've got to question what's been going on with the ticketing over the years. I've been quite critical of the Fans Advisory Board, because I listened to a really, really good podcast with members of the West Ham Fans Advisory Board and the Tottenham Fans Advisory Board, and what they were saying was totally different to how ours operates. The teeth that they have, the organization that they have behind the scenes, the way that they communicate as a fans advisory board with the fans, the way that they don't operate in the chimneys. We don't know anybody who's on our fans advisory board. We'd have to go onto the club website to have a look, and even then we wouldn't know them, we wouldn't recognize them at a game or anything like that. But those other clubs, they have fans advisory board meetings. They have an entire structure. They have an ability for them to communicate with each other that everybody knows about, and a way for them to communicate outwardly to fans, and for fans to inwardly send everything that they want brought up, and for them to not be frightened to bring those topics up. And it seems to be, certainly at West Ham, it was very much open and quite how can I say it? Not frightened to become to go on the attack, if you know what I mean. It was they had some teeth, but they had some guts about them, and they were prepared to challenge the club on everything. And I think we are at the moment caught in a bit of a lip service to our own club in that respect. But commercially, I think commercial's got to be looked at. I'd also look at the board. I mean, dear me, Al Ramayan put 3 people on the board from PIF. Nobody knows what their role actually is. Nobody knows what they do. And I doubt any of us would recognise them if they walk down Northumberland Street. Now, that's not Newcastle United. We're not that type of club. And I wonder whether those people are letting Yasser Al-Rumayyan down, because if people in the football club, if the players knew and other people in the football club knew that Isak was unhappy, why did it come as a surprise a week ago to the chairman of the football club, the man who sits at the very top? Why was it like, what the hell's going on? And why has he had to come to Tyneside to find out what's going on with his club? This is his favourite player. Why is he suddenly finding out that his favourite player's unhappy? The player that he has nurtured in a way, the player that he's built up, the player that he wanted us to go out and buy, the player he was delighted that we bought. Why has it suddenly come as a big shock to him? So either the people in PIF are wrapped up with the people who, the rest of, with the inner sanctum of Newcastle United, the lower echelons, and whether they've got the people who have got their ear are the wrong people, or whether the wrong messages are going up the line, or whether the club just isn't communicating right. I don't know. But these are things that I would question if I was the chairman. Why am I suddenly finding this out? And I'd be questioning the people that I've put in. And we know Jamie Rubin put a guy in. He put Roger Thornton in to be the eyes and ears of the Rubin brothers, because he was probably looking at it when Amanda left and thought, well, they've got, I own 15%, but I've only got the equivalent of 5% board representation. So he puts someone in, and that person acts as his eyes and ears and feeds stuff back to him. But I wonder if the three in PF do exactly the same. We got an email, didn't we, Steve, from somebody who was from Saudi, who he asked us what we thought about stuff, and I haven't replied to him. I don't think we've replied to him yet, but what came over to me was it was kind of quite defensive of the PIF side of, as though we're not allowed to criticise that part of the football club. And that's not Newcastle United either. Mm-hmm. You and I have stood on those terraces. I've stood on that. I stood there in 75 when we were shouting sack the board, after the 74 Cup final. I stood there shouting sack the board when Supermac was getting sold, and so it went on and on all the way through the 80s, the McKeague era, the Westwood era, you name it. We've never been frightened to have a go at the people who run our football club when it's been needed. But we thought we were going to be out of all that. We thought that after Ashley and everything that Ashley did to break the back of fans, if you like, caused so much disharmony, caused so much distrust, caused so much angst among people who were friends who are no longer friends, people who got on with each other who no longer got on with each other, people who gave up tickets and thought they were doing it for the good of the football club, to find out that they never got the reward at the end of getting that ticket back when they thought they were. All of those type of things. They're the areas that we have a long history of and an ability to fight about, and when necessary we've been able to band it together. I don't think we do that anymore. I can't imagine it. But because of that, there needs to be another avenue. There needs to be another avenue to channel that concern, that worry, that mistrust up the line to the club, and for the club to realise, and the club to action, or the club to just listen. And I don't think there's even that channel, Steve, for to be able to do that. Because I don't think the fans advisory board is set up in the way that it is to allow that to happen. Because I think the club built the parameters, and they've kind of put the obstacles in the path for what to do that. I don't think the Supporters Trust can do it. Mm-hmm. Simply because the Supporters Trust only works in it for its members, and that was something that we've discussed before. And it was interesting that both the Tottenham and the West Ham Supporters Trust seemed very happy to take on board any problem by any fan, not just someone who was a member of their organisation, and were not the sort of group that were going to throw out somebody's inquiry because they've gone on the list and went, "Oh no, sorry, you're not a member." Now I know the membership's only £1, and I'm being, you know, it could be classed as pedantic or something like that. But when you do something for a fellow supporter like that, you would then have the support of that supporter. You'd then have a little bit more backing from them, and with that comes like almost a free advert, if you like. It's like, because word goes round, and it's like, you know what, that organisation did some good there. They helped me with that, and then the mates would go, "Oh, that's good," and you go, "You know, you should join now. It costs you £1 or whatever, you know." And that's how you build. You don't build from the other way. You don't build by putting a wall up and saying, "Come along," but you got to climb over the wall first. You open the door, and once you're in, then you sell them what your organization's all about while you're helping people, you know. So, you know, lots of you can tell my head's just pounding at the minute.
It is. Well, all the heads are. The clock has beaten us tonight. Tom, thanks very much. He says, brilliant show tonight, lads. I could listen to Steve Hastie all night. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to you at home. Back tomorrow, 5 o'clock with the three amigos. Steve, thanks very much, mate. See you tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow. Good night,